Alright, this isn't going to be a really heavily edited video like the last Deltarune follow-up to a theory I did, the comment review on the pink and gold theory, except this time the audio levels are actually going to be balanced, the music isn't going to be fucking blaring, so, I'm going to do better this time, and hopefully this one also won't be, like 3 hours long, hopefully. So this video is mainly just going to be me talking with some visuals. There's not enough room in the budget for an animated Jeffrey Epstein cameo like last time. Mainly I'm just going to be talking about how Neo-Hell Theory fits after Chapter 5's release, because in some cases, it's pretty good. And also just about my thoughts in Chapter 5 in general, because, Chapter 5 has had mixed receptions. Overall, I think it could have been the best chapter in the game. It's a really good chapter, but at the same time, it's also heavily flawed. But we'll talk about that all later. I'll sprinkle that in across the course of the video. So, let's just get into it.
How to disappear using an egg? Guys, see, I disappear. Guys, I disappear using an egg. First person in the world to ever do it.
So, starting out with the Forgotten Man, seems like we're completely done with this whole egg quest, maybe. If so, I was right on the money about it being not too important, but not too unimportant. It really doesn't change anything in the world or, story of Deltarune. Well, that being aside from Chris, very specifically Chris. It's basically confirmed that the egg rooms are a manifestation of Chris's past trauma, so that's 1 point for the theory. One thing I got right, although to be fair, basically everybody was saying that, so actually retract that point. It's not really that fair. Now, it is interesting here about the end of the Eggman and the taking an issue with the Eggman and other stuff we're gonna talk about later. Just wait. We'll get to it. Okay, I'm gonna talk about it in the friends section. That's the next section. Just skip to that if you want to already. Anyways, as I was saying, the eggs don't change anything with the fate of Deltarune, but what they do change is maybe seemingly, and we can't say this for sure, but it seems like it's changed Chris on some sort of subconscious level. Now, none of Chris's actions really change after they get this final egg, but the text heavily implies a burden has been lifted off of Chris. And just the way this text reads, I heavily doubt this isn't going to affect the way Chris will act in the future. And you know what all of this kind of reminds me of? It's something more important than reaching the end. It's actually having an effect on these characters' lives. I mean, that's getting into the new futures part of the Neo-Hell theory, and we'll get to that later, but sticking to the topic of the Eggman, I don't think whatever this supposed egg route is entirely over at the moment. I don't think we're going to be looking for the man or even any more secrets anymore, but I think there was definitely going to be an observable change in the way Chris will act as a person. And speaking of Chris, there's something interesting that I want to talk about with them. It's this scene, and it's not just because of Kredly. Okay, it's a lot of because of Kredly, but it is important, and there is actually some interesting implications from this that also kind of has to do with Neo-Hell theory, but not really, but stick around. So, does Chris just have one of Birdley's feathers on them at all times? That's a little interesting. So, the way I see it, there's really only two options, because there is no fucking way Chris could have gotten that feather from Birdley on the day of the festival, or hell, even yesterday. The earliest point at which this could have been done was the Chapter 2 Dark World. But that's never really seen, at least on screen, we never see anything like that happen. I guess a feather could have fallen off of Birdley and Chris could have picked it up, but we don't see that happen, to be fair. This means that Chris has either always had this Birdley feather, or at some point when we weren't in Chris went and got this Birdley feather, which is weird because there's never been any implications of any meetings with Birdley outside of our jurisdiction. Regardless, what this does mean is there was a lot of premeditation in this fucking action. So, that gets to the real big question, how did Chris know that Seth would want this? Seth says very specifically that before the Dark World was made, this deal was made with Seth. So how would Chris know that Seth has a crush on Birdly? Seth was literally just a fucking flower. Which also does kind of bring into question how Seth knows about Birdly, because they are in the back room of the Flower King shop, and why was Birdly ever back there? So there's a couple of things we can glean from this. For one thing, Chris has insane foreknowledge, most likely coming from the prophecy, which, you know, we suspected before, but this basically confirms it. It's also interesting to point out the nature of this knowledge and the deal as well. You see, because Seth is a very specific character, and their crush on Birdly is this very specific part of their character. You're really going into the weeds of the prophecy there, if the prophecy even has that outlined, if you just define that. Especially considering Chris had this feather, and maybe had this feather planned ahead of time, at least a couple of days before this Dark World was even made. Okay, let me Kredly out for a second here. Here's what I think happened. When you take into context Chris blushing after Susie asks her question, and then getting the fuck out of there and refusing to go back in there, I think Chris has had this feather for reasons other than this plan. And let's talk about that quote-unquote plan, because it feels a little bit half-baked and kind of unnecessary. Unlike the deal with Tenna, which was very necessary for the Knight's plans, this was, a bit unnecessary, like, at all. So Seth says that this deal was specifically made for Seth's help, which is a little vague. And if it was specifically to get out of the cage, well, for one thing, why would Chris even want that? I mean, staying in the cage would give Chris and Susie more time to bond, and give the Knight more time to get their fucking ass up and get to the goddamn Dark World, which was the whole reason they made the deal with Tenna, and we'll talk about that later. It's also not like they probably needed Seth to help them get out of that cage anyway. I mean, especially considering Ralsei was in the other room. And also, if they just wanted to go for somebody reliable, why wouldn't they just have Green do this? So yeah, this is a bit odd, but here's what I think happened. Chris had that feather because Kredly, and when they made the Dark World, or before they made the Dark World rather, they wanted to get rid of it. Probably out of an embarrassment of some kind, or maybe because something awful is gonna happen. Okay, now this part's a little bit more important. So as we know, between each chapter, Chris kinda disappears and does their own thing. My guess is that part of this is learning what's upcoming about the next Dark World and everything the prophecy has in line, like a briefing of sorts between the fucking Shadow conspiracy crew. This would explain how Chris knew about Seth and their crush on Birdly. Then when making the Dark World, I figure Chris hastily made this deal with Seth for some kind of favor in the future. Now that favor might have been planned to be something else, but it ended up being this. So it's all very interesting. But the TLDR is, Kredly confirmed! Kredly fans are eating good slop! Kredly fans are winning! Fuck Suzel! Chris Susie! Fucking any other the other ones! They all suck! Kredly wins! Kredly wins! Anyways, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the tree. Yeah, Asgore, as predicted, we got a lot of information about what happened behind the tree from Mr. Bergen Truckin' over here. His various notes and even his own monologue give us a lot of interesting details to chew on, but honestly nothing that we didn't really predict. This does confirm that one way or another a Dark World was made here, and thanks to suspect number 4, Kattenheimer, it's very, very likely that Chris was the maker of that Dark World. We have confirmation that Chris went through a summoning ritual a long time ago. So, fuck, that's one big point towards Neo-Hell Theory. Give me that point back! Yeah, there we go. Though, throughout all of this, we are left with a couple of loose ends that just beg for further examination. First of all, let's talk about the Black Shards. Asgore's notes mentioned that 2 of them were found, one at the computer lab, and another one at the original Dark World, wherever that may be. Now, I've seen the idea floating around that whenever the Knight makes a Dark Fountain, they just, like, a black shard just pops off their sword, and that's how these have been left there, which I think is stupid, very stupid. For one thing, why wouldn't Alvin or any of the other volunteers have found this while they were cleaning up the sanctuary? I mean, the Knight made 2 dark fountains in the church, so presumably there'd be 2 black shards just littered around somewhere. To be fair, though, we don't have any reason to believe that the Knight made the second fountain, or, I mean, the first fountain. It seems like a spillover fountain, if you ask me, but whatever. You could argue that Carol or maybe Chris went and got the black shards, but then why wouldn't they try to clean up the sanctuary too? I guess it's a bit of a tall task, but it would be good to help them keep under the radar. I mean, to be fair, there is this scene where Chris picks something up in the first sanctuary that could be the black shard, I guess. So, I mean, that's interesting, and it also kind of would fit with where the dark fountain would be, I guess, but I don't know. However, why wouldn't Susie find the black shard in the Flower King Dark World? After all, the knight really did make a fountain there at the last second. I mean, I guess they could have circled back and gotten it, but like, that's not really in their character. Also, the knight's sword is very clearly chipped after a black shard comes off of it in Chapter 3. Also, something we had to fight like hell to get, this Titan slaying item. Kind of devalues it if it just comes off every time the knight makes a dark world. Finally, this interpretation kind of falls apart if you read the exposition dump on a save file where you don't already have a black shard. Susie asks what a black shard is, to which Rousey replies with shock that it's a piece of the knight's sword. Based on his reaction to this information, we can assume that it's not something he already knew and it's something he found from the files, meaning that he either saw the fountain get made or he took out a piece of the knight's sword himself. Or I guess somebody else could have taken out the piece. Anyways, based on the fact that he's never been in a dark world before, I think it's pretty safe to assume the latter. I mean, in this universe, it's not exactly the cowardice that's Asgore's problem, it's more the stubbornness, so I doubt that he wouldn't just run into the dark world if he saw it get made. Also, the heavy implication that Chris made this original dark world kind of flies in the face of that, so I'm pretty safe to say that black shards don't just come off when you make a dark world, which leaves one thing in question. Why was there a black shard in the computer lab? And also, how did Asgore find it? Was it you? It was you, wasn't it? It was fucking... We'll get to that later. The black shard being in the computer lab is a weird reveal, because Susie acts like it's a reveal that the knight made the Chapter 2 Dark World when really it wasn't. I mean, she was directly told that. But what's more interesting is Rousey's reaction. You see, I think a lot of people have confused the shock from Rousey here. You see, Rousey is supposed to know everything, like that's his whole deal. And this is one of the few moments when he doesn't know something, where he's actually shocked by certain information. That means things have gone off script. So it's so very interesting how, when Rousey's reading the document, he has no surprise whatsoever from the original Dark Fountain and the knight being there. However, what does shock him, even cause him to pause, is when he hears about the black shard at the computer lab. Like, it's clear from his dialogue that the black shard being in the computer lab clearly shocks him and even seems to scare him a little bit. I assume most people think that when Rousey says that the knight is only supposed to show up alongside the heroes, he's talking about the original fountain, but that brings him no pause, brings him no confusion. It's the fact that the knight showed up in Chapter 2 that truly confuses Rousey. And this isn't the only weird thing about the cyber world as well. When we first enter the cyber world, the land is cracked, there's craters everywhere, and there's terrified plug boys every which way. Noelle is seemingly injured and a little terrified. She's about to warn us of something, and then Queen captures her with a cage. Now, this seems to imply that something went down here, some sort of battle, some sort of fight, and Noelle was involved. People have often theorized that this battle was what convinced Queen that Noelle was so strong and powerful. However, if I may, this whole cracks and craters, scorched earth kind of policy isn't really Queen's MO. I mean, if she has a cage to put you in, she'll usually just put you in there without any kind of battle or fuss whatsoever. No, cracks, craters, violent energy, and fear all reminds me of someone else. Someone who we now know was here. And if somebody had to take out that black shard, well, Noelle has been shown to be quite powerful. It also makes sense why Noelle wouldn't bring this up. After all, she just thinks it's a dream. So it's very possible that Noelle has already fought the knight. Kind of recontextualizes the whole ending to this chapter in a whole different way. And also is maybe the best evidence for Death Knight that I've seen thus far. I mean, think about it. Based on Rousey's reaction, we can surmise that this was an event that was not supposed to happen in the prophecy. So it's actually pretty rational to assume that the knight went rogue here. And honestly, based on what happened, I can't think of any other reason to do that at this specific juncture other than to see Noelle. And, well, what reason would Carol or Rudy have to do this? They could already see Noelle at any time. No, they would want to avoid that. But Des, or the shambling mess that is the knight, maybe with some remnant of Des in it, maybe some part of it wanted to see her sister again. But Noelle was naturally terrified of it, and the night just seems to not be able to control itself, so, well, the rest is history. I don't know, this seems like this chapter's biggest reveal, and I haven't seen anybody else talking about it. It seems pretty simple to connect the dots here, honestly. But you never know, any other series of scenarios could have happened here. Also, all of this time is unaccounting for where the fuck Birdly was, as Birdly encountered the night. Birdly really is the big outlier in everything. I love Birdly. Birdly love. We love Birdly here. Anyways, another interesting detail that I kind of freaked out over in the live stream is this. So, what the fuck, Toby? Why would you play that sound effect? What the fuck? What? The Weird Root has seemingly doubled down on being its own thing and separating from the main story, so why is it coming up here? Well, I suppose thinking about this as, like, the Weird Root sound is a bit reductive. Might be better to focus on it as its own individual thing. S&D Ominous Stab Harsh 2 is a very disgusting sound, and you know the scene it plays in. We all know the scene it plays in. And Asgore's flashback has some very obvious shared imagery with this scene that really can't be ignored, all things considered. So what the fuck does this mean? Well, not to be the color theory guy again, but red has had a very prominent show up this chapter. You know, there's this and, you know, that. We'll get to it later. But, you know, red has always been a color of the soul and determination, but the more we've played through Deltarune, it seems that determination of the soul isn't still quite there. I mean, if anything, red has only seemed to be associated with bad things, pain and corruption and just bad stuff, man. But I think undeniably, this all kind of surrounds the soul. The color red is almost exclusively used for the soul. Yes, we'll get to that later, on God, trust. The idea that the soul is being implanted into Noelle in some way is still rather relevant, and this disgusting sound has always had that kind of, you know, feeling like inserting something. Kind of like you insert Chapter 7, Side B. And the visuals with Asgore here really kind of evoke that same kind of imagery with all of the lines accumulating to the spot where his soul would be. So I feel like that's the common thread, that's what it's all tying back to, the soul. And I feel like maybe I know what this imagery is trying to tell us. Because Chris's birdcage has been worn since the beginning of the game. Chris has been ready for us since Chapter 1. It's pretty common consensus that Chris has had this mysterious soul for a while now, but, well, I mean, the soul is us. And it's also Chris's soul, maybe? I mean, without it, Chris clearly doesn't have a soul of their own, so... But my biggest sticking point to the soul's prior existence is, well, why would Chris have such a problem with the soul? The soul's problem is that it is us, that we are taking over Chris. If the soul has been bugging Chris, taking over Chris regularly without us there, bit strange, isn't it? But I mean, something had to happen at some point to cause such a disconnection between Chris and their soul to allow us, a foreign entity, to take it over. And as far as we can tell, Chris's soul is special. It's the only thing that can seal Dark Worlds. And that's probably because of us, but how did we get here? How did we get that power? Well, maybe it's possible that we've been growing inside Chris all this time, or maybe somebody else has been running the ship for us? Or maybe we actually were there the whole time. You see, if you have the egg during the yellow and blue boss fight, it will actually count for evidence. And it will be accompanied with this description.
It's evidence. You'll know what it was evidence for when it happened.
The verbiage seems to imply that the egg event that it's evidence of will happen in the future, which is bizarre. It also does so while implying it was evidence of something in the past at the same time, but I actually think I have an idea for how this could make sense. For the characters of Deltarune, this event was in the past, but who's to say that we experience time the same way they do? What's to say that we aren't going to go back to that time, that we've always been in that time? For them, it was the past, but for us, it's the future. I don't know, maybe that's an interesting idea, just something I thought of in the moment, but who knows, really. I do think whatever's going on with Chris's soul definitely started in this moment. I just don't see any other reason why we'd have this specific foreshadowing towards it. But honestly, I just don't know what that means. Because if we weren't controlling the soul, then, what was the problem with it? It's also worth asking how chronologically the Goner Maker sequence factors into this and the whole second voice thing? Because the second voice seemingly injected us into Chris. Maybe they injected us into Chris at this moment, but we just didn't activate until much later on in the timeline? I mean, how the Goner Maker ends does kind of feel like a time skip. Whatever the second voice was about to say our name was gets cut off, so maybe there's something there. Also, strange time shenanigans would explain the intro to Chapter 2 with Toriel seemingly being attacked by, like, Chris or something. I mean, personally, I have a headcanon idea where, like, Friend took the soul and then put it in Chris to piss off Gaster or something, but, like, I mean, what's the chances of that? Who knows? We'll see. Speaking of which, I think that's everything on the egg topic route, so I think it's time we talk about Friend, I guess. Alright, never mind. Do not end this section. I forgot something I need to bring up. So I think I know what the Knight's plan is, like, without a shadow of a doubt. Like, I think I can call this 100%. Because I think it's actually insanely obvious. Like, it's been right in front of our noses the entire time. Alright, so let me lay out the groundwork here. Back in the Chapter 3 and 4 era, there was a very popular, like, idea that the Knight was never planned to kidnap Toriel and was always planned to kidnap Undyne instead. The idea was that instead of the Knight being insanely late, they were just waiting for Undyne to show up, and that Chris obviously never wanted Toriel to get kidnapped because, their mother, that they don't want their mother to be kidnapped. But Chapter 5 has blown this idea out of the water, with the Knight being late again, showing that their tardiness is not an outlier of any kind, and with the fact that Chris very willingly opened this dark world where their father was kidnapped. Now, I know that Chris and Asgore just generally don't have the best relationship, but I don't think it's bad enough to the point where Chris would be willing to fucking kill Asgore for whatever the Knight's plot is. No, Chris isn't literally evil, okay? Like, they're more morally complex than that. And this also goes to show us that they probably would have been fine, or even wanted the Knight to take Toriel in the first place. So, why would Chris be fine with this? Well, think about it. Where is the Knight taking people? To a shelter. The prophecy has told us that in any matter of days now, the world as we know it is going to come to an end. And what is the first fucking thing that you do when the apocalypse comes knocking at the door? Get into the bunker and hide. Now, before we continue, I need to clarify that I think this entire plot centers around Carol. This plan has her fingerprints all over it, and I think you're about to see more why. Carol is the mayor of Hometown, and she's all about preserving the things she loves, no matter what cost. Now look at the specific people the Knight is kidnapping. Asgore and Toriel. Now sure, there's also Undyne, but that's also very, very likely that that was just a tactical last-second decision. I mean, Toriel was asleep, so she wouldn't know about any of this, and the Knight could probably only take one of them, and having Undyne know about Dark Worlds would be really, really bad for the plot, so fuck it, we just gotta take her out of here then. Either that, or the Knight's just really, really stupid. That's also totally possible. Now, while the Holidays and the Dreamers have drifted apart over the years, they're still very close. The two closest people to Carol outside of her family are Asgore and Toriel. Add to that, she's already got Chris in on the plot and Asriel's MIA, so it seems like the entire Dreamer family is going into that shelter. I mean, the ones that are available. I'm not saying that Asriel is already in the shelter. I'm not dismissing the possibility, but like that's a bit of a stretch. Now, I can already hear the comment section. Why wouldn't Carol just tell everyone in Hometown about this? Now, I think the answer is pretty obvious. It's a small shelter. It's not going to fit everyone in Hometown. The cold hard facts are only some people are going to get into that shelter and survive the roaring. If Carol was to tell everybody, everybody would want it. It would cause a mass panic, and there's no good to be found in that, at least for Carol. But by keeping the secret, which we know Carol has been doing, she can ensure the people that she wants to get into the shelter, the people she wants to keep safe, will be safe. This, out of any prediction I've seen, makes the most sense for what Carol's role in Deltarune is. At the same time, it's also very likely that if Carol were to tell everybody in Hometown, it wouldn't exactly end out well. Again, this would cause a mass panic and would undeniably change the story and even the themes of Deltarune. And well, that's not supposed to happen. The prophecy's will cannot be broken that easily. Now, the other thing I hear you saying is, why is Carol having the Knight kidnap them? Why doesn't she just invite the Dreamer family into the shelter or tell them the plan? Well, because that would be fucking incredibly stupid. For one thing, Asgore and Toriel are not the type of people who would like to go along with this plan. They are very kind and loving people to all of the residents of Hometown. If there was a chance to save everyone, they take it over the much higher chance to save themselves. That kind of resistance is very risky and could lead to the entire plot getting exposed. And on the other hand, Carol can't just ask them to go to the shelter. The shelter is not like a fucking hangout spot. You know, people don't just go to the shelter. It's a very taboo place, likely because of whatever crime happened in the past. Not to mention that the Holidays and Dreamers have drifted apart, especially Carol. So Carol telling Asgore or Toriel to meet them at the shelter is going to raise some red flags fucking instantly. I mean, she's basically asking them to show up to the crime scene where her daughter probably fucking died. And whereas I could maybe see you argue how Asgore would fall for that, his whole investigation could really easily be used as a guise to get him there. And his desire to not be seen as a Paranak anymore would most likely keep his lips shut. However, the same cannot be said for Toriel. She is a very chatty person and very well known around hometown, so there's a very high chance that she'd most likely tell somebody about this meeting. And if word gets out that Toriel is gone missing right before she was about to go to the shelter, well, then that place is about to be declared an active crime scene, and that's just gonna fuck everything up. Now, the final thing, and maybe the biggest thing that you might find questionable about this idea, is that there's a dark world in the shelter. How is the shelter supposed to be safe from the roaring when it's literally got like a homing beacon for the roaring inside of it? Well, to be fair, Chris could seal that dark world at any time with their soul, and also there is kind of a fair reason for keeping it open. Because you see, once Asgore, Toriel, Undyne have all shown up here, been kidnapped here, you think they're just gonna take that lying down? The Knight can't constantly be watching them, and I doubt that Carol just wants to leave them chained up there with like no supervision. They are, you know, her friends after all. Now, the answer to all of this, the easiest way to keep them occupied and contained, is, well, a dark world. A grand door is much harder, maybe even impossible to break down in comparison to the rusty old doors of the bunker. And while Susie couldn't break them down, the combined force of Asgore and Undyne and even Toriel could at the very least make some noise and maybe like knock out a few bolts. It would also give Carol a legion of Darkners at her command that could watch over all of them. And maybe even keeping Rudy alive for a little bit longer. It's been implied that darkness magic might be more helpful to him than hometown's hospital care. Hell, it's been proven time and time again that the hometown conspiracy's best tool for distracting people, keeping people at bay, is making dark worlds, and at the same time manipulating Darkners to do their bidding. This makes a shocking amount of sense, and I'm honestly surprised that nobody besides me, at least as far as I know, maybe somebody on Reddit or something, or maybe there's been a video that's released recently that I haven't seen that calls this out, but like nobody else that I know of has called this out. This seems like the most logical extent of what Carol's plan would be. Okay, anyways, now we can go to the next
My big friend, my big fat friend, my big friend, my big fat friend, my big belly, my big red belly, my big belly, my big fat belly.
I am Gaster. I am an asshole. Big friend's handsome, but he is not in control. His belly quakes, but I'll put our life at stake. He's gonna make the whole Deltarune break. What the fuck is this fucking bit, man? Well. Looks like I got a couple things right. I mean, pink and gold theory is pretty much confirmed at this point. The fact that we got a pink and gold cat for this secret boss couldn't be stronger evidence if I wanted to. So give me a point for that. Give me a point for that. And not even to mention the fact that the whole, like, purple to green color switching happens, like, a ton of different times this chapter in, like, really weirdly subtle ways. The philosophers just be switching colors for no reason. Pink basically goes from the fucking pink colors to Jevil colors with her ghost form. Fucking this, like, there's a full fake sun and like it turns from pink and gold to purple and green, and the sun it's like fucking wild. And like the enemies changing to pink made like kind of sense when the Mizzles did it, but like when fucking these leaflings turn to pink, like that's like water can turn pink, you can dilute water, but leaves just don't turn to pink. That's weird. That one is weird. Just wanted to mention that. And you know, honestly, I didn't even think I was right with this one. People have been shitting on me for this like take for almost a year now, but like it keeps coming up. All right, okay, we'll talk about it. Let's talk about it. Okay, so first off, Red Friend. Okay, to be honest, I haven't seen a lot of the discussion from the community, so I honestly can't say if anybody else has figured this out, but I'm pretty certain there's like a very, very obvious reason why Friend is red that I really only came to figure out like a couple of days ago. So I'm just going to try and spell it out for you guys and see if anybody else has actually, like, realized this. So, look at Asgore's flowers, representing the human souls. You know, what's missing? And then, at the same time, what's gained? We have the 6 human souls outside of determination, no red, but the 2 new colors that are added are pink and motherfucking gold. Not only that, but give me another fucking point, because these 2 represent hope and freedom, respectively. Okay, I did fuck it up. I did say gold was freedom and pink was hope, but you swap it around and it's fucking directly works. Flowery's basically like Hope Man. He's literally fucking Hope Man. This isn't even like a subtext thing or like a meta thing. It's fucking straight up told to us that he's Hope Man. And Pink is like the embodiment of freedom, the only person who gets to choose who they are in this world. They're the only Shadow Crystal boss who actually gets the freedom they so desire, which is... We'll talk about that. Pink and Gold theory has aged pretty good, honestly. I mean, this doesn't really answer why Friend is red specifically, but like, this gives us a very clear outline to probably why. Friend's signature colors have kind of been taken this chapter and went off to do their own thing. So, Friend has decided to take the color that was taken by nobody else. However, at first, Friend is invisible, and this is very important. Friend doesn't turn red till directly the soul interacts with them. And again, the soul is the most prominent red visual in this entire series, and when interacting with it, Friend turns red. It's like they're mimicking us. And then, after turning red, they decide to damage us. This was apparently a bite attack, and after all, just like Mike said,
I swear, when you people see pink and yellow, you think, oh, a friend. Being a friend doesn't make them yours. Those teeth, they bite.
Now, I do want to clarify, because most people seem to think that Friend takes you down to 1 health here, the entire party down to 1 health. But how Friend damages you is actually much more complicated than that. See, Friend will look at the first item in your inventory and then damage you an equal amount to that item's sell value. But won't kill you, they'll leave you at 1 health, the entire party at 1 health, but it seems like they very easily could kill you here. It honestly just really seems like Friend's fucking aura farming here. The night fucking wishes. So there is a couple of things that we can take away from this, because it's more deep than just, Red Friend! I am the Red Friend!
I am red.
First of all, Friend is a symbol of the rejected. There is no red flower, therefore, Friend takes up the mantle of the red flower, the forgotten, the left out. This is not really something new. Friend has always been lurking in these deepest of dark places where only the, saddest of people, the rejected people, hang out. Which, of course, are the Shadow Crystal holders, typically. Secondly, Friend is being painted as a scary threat, the evil kind of villain here. Which some people have said goes against everything I said in Neo-Hell Theory, but no, that's exactly what I said was going to happen. I said Friend was going to be painted as a villain by the narrative and by themselves a little bit, which is exactly what's happening here. And we're getting to it. Thirdly, and maybe most importantly, Friend hates us. Not Chris, not Susie, not Rouse. They hate the soul. They hate the player. When the player interacts, they bite. Because very specifically, this is the player's action. This isn't a Chris act, a Susie act, a Rouse act. This is the player act. And when they don red, their first action is violence. They mimic our color and then immediately become the bad guy. Now, this may be a bit of a stretch, but to me this is always read as Friend donning the color of the player to kind of slander them, to show the player for what they really are or something, as evil, violent, or something like that. I've always suspected that Friend would not like us. In a similar vein to Chris, but actually understand what we are and hate us for that exact thing. Because, well, honestly, this is delving into the realm of straight up fanfiction at this point, but what else is this fucking channel anyways? Having a character that sees the player for what they are and then just straight up hating them for that is kind of a Toby Fox staple. And I mean, we don't really have that in Deltarune yet. I mean, the closest we have is Chris, but Chris doesn't really fully understand what we are and how much control control we have over this world. Well, I mean, I guess that's an assumption. Gaster seems to be the only one who actually understands what the player is, but he seems to fucking love the player. He will not stop fucking glazing us. Oh my god. So in Friend's Eternal War to be the opposite of everything Gaster represents, the hell to his heaven, I think this just kind of makes sense. But then again, this is kind of just my own biases factoring into the assumption. Oh, and fourthly, Friend is the mimic.
My name is Gaster. I'm a friend. 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 Chris.
That is my name.
Chris.
And I want another.
Chris.
Where is my
Egg.
I'm running out on the road. There is a
Friend.
and this is going to hit me.
Yeah, Friend's kind of imitation here is probably nothing to look over. It's probably an important aspect of who they are, and Friend has kind of always had shapeshifter vibes. They seem to be a more fluid, abstract Darkner than most. The whole thing about how darkness is water and can fill in any shape, you know, that really feels like it's going to come into play with Friend a lot. Especially with them taking the shape of an amalgam, which is really their whole thing is being like liquidy shapeshifters, which we're going to talk more about that later, trust me. Honestly, I don't really know necessarily how this factors into their character, but it is more evidence for them being that Titan in the Roaring with their whole shape-shifting ability and shit. And there is probably some way to tie this back to that whole always at your humble service stuff with Friend as like a minion and a goon, but like, I think I'm going to talk more about that later. Anyways, okay, let's talk about it. Let's fucking talk about it, fine. Now, I've heard some people say that this entire interaction disproves, you know, the entire Neo-Hell theory. However, no, I do not think it does. It can certainly make it harder in some aspects, but... So, first off, Friend's giving the shadow crystals. It's like fucking undeniable at this point. Give me a point. Give me a point for that one. Give me a point for that one. I think I was like one of the first people to say that, like ever, so... For starters, Friend now has an undeniable connection to all of the secret bosses, except for maybe Jevil. Although, this text does seem to imply something about him, too, so let's go ahead and get to that. Now, apparently when most people read this, they assumed this was referencing the night, or December as the night, which... I don't really get. I mean, first of all, the night is not hiding. I mean, at least in Dark Worlds. Like, I mean, you could kind of argue that they're hiding in the Light World, but, like, Friend's domain is the Dark Worlds. They're very brash and brazen whenever they're in the Dark Worlds. The last thing I would describe them as stealthy. And framing them changing their appearance into the night like this kind of makes that seem like it was an active choice, which, based on everything we've seen about the night, I don't really think that was it. I don't think the night chose to become the night. I mean, that is assuming if it is December. I mean, most likely, if we're sticking to Neo-Hell theory, whatever happened to make December the night was some kind of tragic accident. Or maybe it was intentional. We'll get to that later. But no, when I heard this line for the first time, the first people I thought of were Jevil and Spamton. I mean, talk about in hiding. Spamton is living in a fucking dumpster in a whole other dark world than the world that he was, like, actually enjoying himself in. Just like Saul Goodman. These characters actually have a lot of parallels. You know, I can't use another fucking Better Call Saul clip because they'll fucking DMCA. They DMCA'd me for the fucking clip last. I mean, Spamton has definitely changed his appearance. That much we know. And we even know he's maybe hiding from something? Listen to Big Shot.
Take something from the inside of the phone. A hand is waiting for your vowel wrong. It pokes straight and makes a ring and fill your heart just red dot.
Okay, I'm definitely going to talk about this more later, but just keep it in mind. And, I mean, Jevil is fucking literally hidden away in their own cell at the bottom of the basement. Literally locked away from the world. The weirdest thing, though, is nobody fits this theme better than Friend themselves. If you remember in Neo-Hell, there was a whole part about how I theorized how Friend went into hiding, and, well, Friend is always fucking hiding. Friend straight up chooses to disappear anytime we get a good look at him. And they literally just chose to change their appearance right before we get this dialogue, and then went into hiding again. In fact, the only one of the secret bosses who's not been displayed to be hiding in any way is, Gerson. Gerson is very much not hiding. He very much puts himself into the story, inserts himself into the prophecy, being the only secret boss actually in the prophecy. This is important, just keep this in mind for later. Okay, so the secret bosses are hiding from Friend, but Friend is also hiding from something, but Friend's also hunting them down, and Friend's also like a elite squad of hunting cats. And also the same person who's giving the shadow crystals is also the same person who's hunting down the people with the shadow crystals? So what the fuck is happening here? Well, okay, I think Mad Mew Mew, not Pink, is a little bit confused here. Not to say that she's lying or that this text means nothing, because it clearly does, but I think she's mixed a few things up. So I think we might need to think outside of the box here. I've got a few different ideas for how this could all play out, all still aligning with Neo-Hell theory pretty well, so let's go over them. First of all, I am very confident that the someone that she speaks of is Friend. Just straight up Friend. Now, the prevailing argument against this that I've seen is that, well, Friend is the cats, and so therefore Friend can't be the someone who really likes cats because Friend is a cat. But remember what I went over earlier about Friend's whole shapeshifter mimicry thing. Friend actually really isn't a cat. Like, Friend is some sort of darkness essence, but they choose to display themselves as a cat because they like cats. And remember, this is right on the heels of a secret boss which did the exact same thing. It's somebody who isn't a cat, but chose to become one. Also, real quick, for the sake of clarification, when I say Mad Mew Mew, I'm referring to Pink's body that held the shadow crystal and knows all this secret bullshit. When I say Pink, I'm referring to the entity of both of them combined, and when I say Pink's ghost, I'm talking about, like, Mad Dummy, the lightener. You know, you get it. Now, I get how this can be a bit of a stretch to say, but the ideas of reinterpretation and presentation just keep coming up here, and the idea that Friend chooses to present themselves as a cat is very interesting, and it keeps coming up. I really like the idea that Friend chooses to portray themselves as not a demon, but a cat, because, well, one is a lot more preferable than the other. Those aren't demon horns, they're just fluffy cat ears. After all, who wouldn't want fluffy cat ears? Also, I just can't not mention this BFGI reference.
Racist! Get this guy out of here!
Like, I mean, this just fits so well, though. It ties back to, like, almost everything. It ties back to Mad Mew Mew Pink, fucking Chris's Demon Horde headband. Everything, it fits so well. It also kind of perfectly fits with Friend as an amalgam. Alright, so I don't think I've ever actually talked about this, but let's talk about the androgyny connection. Friend is quite clearly very similar to this Undertale dog amalgam. And androgyny also appears in Deltarune, kind of, like the other amalgamates, without the freaky True Lab bullshit science shit. It remains dead, and there's a grave for it in the graveyard. Mutler, who was apparently Androgyny's true identity, or more likely one of Androgyny's true identity, was apparently the leader of the pack in question being the Wet-Nosed Bandits. But this is interesting wording, and it matches up with some things, so keep it in mind. Now, Androgyny directly puts into question how many dogs it actually, is, how many dogs are a part of it as an amalgamate. The easy answer is 5, one for each of these little leg zones that become alive once its spare condition is met, but to be honest though, looking back at Androgyny's design, these look so much more like cats than dogs. You could also maybe argue that there's 6 dogs here, Mutler being the gibbering mouth at the top of the head. Would make sense considering that he was the head of the pack, or maybe he's just the dog in the center. Okay, now what does any of this have to do with Friend? Well, directly connecting Friend to Androgyny, combined with the text we get about Mutler from Deltarune and this new recent exposition, I think it's pretty safe to say that Friend is the leader of the pack. This wild pack of hunting cats that Mew Mew describes. So, if we're saying Friend's the leader, then what is the pack? Well, continuing off the Androgyny connections, I think it's pretty safe to use the same method Androgyny used for their pack, that being the legs. If we go down to Friend's legs, we see they have 4 kind of open slots for a pack of cats. This is one of the more interesting changes between Friend and Androgyny. It's really the only noticeable one, going down from 5 to 4. And while this could very well be for the hand imagery, Friend is a hand, we're going to talk about that more later, I don't know, it feels maybe like it's more important. So, who could these 4 cats be? Are there any particular cats, or maybe just Friend associates, who we could put into each of these 4 slots pretty evenly? Alright, I'm just gonna lay out my cards on the table. Here they are. It's the Shadow Crystal holders, minus Gerson. A resounding half of them are of the puppet/cat element, so there's that. For the other two, there isn't actually any association to cats. Maybe you could put shaman here and make something out of that. But they rather relate to the other side of the friend spectrum. Jevel is one of the few other people besides Friend who have any sort of demon kindred. And the Knight and Friend share a lot of similarities in their physical form and mannerisms. But, go watch Neo Hell Theory if you want to see me go over that. We already did that. Anyways, my point is they all have some sort of friend kindred one way or another. They all together could form a pack under the reign of Friend. Now, at the moment, I can see how this is kind of a stretch, but there's a surprising amount of details that actually kind of back this up. So, first things first, let's talk about Spamton's deals. It's pretty heavily implied that Spamton made a deal with whoever gave them the Shadow Crystal. And based on just general patterns, we can also kind of rationally assume that everybody who got a Shadow Crystal got one from making a deal with whoever the mysterious someone is, which in this case is Friend. So, what was that deal? Why was the mysterious someone, in this case Friend, giving out these Shadow Crystals? Well, in this case, it is a literal deal with the devil. Mew Mew says that whoever this mysterious someone is owns a whole pack of cats. And the idea of ownership is something very important that's often looked over here. In Deltarune's universe, the ownership of something as simple as an object can often inform the whole Darkner's life when the lights are turned out. The idea of ownership and control over another is something frequently brought up in this game, so I don't think it's something that we should easily gloss over. You see, I think the deal was a very traditional deal with the devil, a deal for your soul, something which Spamton is quite familiar with. Friend is the hand that waits for you till you're all alone. They are directly the shape of a hand and only seem to talk to people in one-on-one scenarios. Therefore, we can pretty easily associate that Friend is the one pulling the strings. And the fact that Spamton's being hunted finally explains this beginning part of the diatribe. Friend is hunting Spamton very directly. But why would Friend hunt Spamton? We've gone over like thousands of times how they were colleagues, if anything. Well, because of the deal. Spamton sold his soul and now it's time to pay up. That's why they're in hiding. They don't want to pay up on their end of the deal. And when Spamton goes into his Neo form and realizes that he's still held up by the strings of his deal, what is it that he asks for to break the deal? Chris's soul. This also finally explains the final lyric, until your soul turns red hot. Red is the color of determination, the most powerful thing in the Undertale Deltarune universe. Possibly the only thing that can allow you control and freedom in this world. And maybe why the soul emanates holy light, which is the only thing that can keep creatures of great darkness like Friend at bay. It's the thing that breaks binds and would allow Spamton out of his deal. That's why he wanted it. He wasn't naive, this was just a last resort. After all, considering that Friend is probably the final titan, the soul is most likely the thing that's gonna kill them. Also, it all ties right back around to Friend's seeming hatred of us. They all made deals for knowledge, success, power, and fucking I don't know, but more generally for freedom. However, this ultimately ended them up on a different set of strings at the end of the day. And if you want more evidence of this, then look at the only one who isn't included here. Gerson was the only one wise enough not to take the deal for freedom, not to obsess over his failed dreams, but rather live on after them. The only one who chose not to play in the background and instead jump into the foreground to actually make the changes he wanted to see. And the only one with no ties back to Friend other than his pink and gold. Again, Undogeny had 5 dog slots, but Friend only has 4. There were 5 Shadow Crystals sent out, but only 4 of them accepted the invite. And the pattern doesn't even end here. So I know I said earlier that Friend is hunting down each member of the Neo Pack, but there's a bit more to it than that. Cause, well, Friend's actually pretty passive. In fact, the only thing they ever really kind of attack is the soul. In BATTAT and on the Spamton sweepstakes, they actually kind of fuck with us directly. And of course, the Chapter 5 bite incident as well. I mean, we're still talking about it. We haven't even gotten to the fucking bite yet, Jesus Christ. And there's the 40-minute mark. I cannot produce videos under an hour. Anyways, if Friend wanted to take out Spamton, they easily could have. They were in the basement and Spamton was left alone while he was transforming. Not to mention, they're also right outside of Pink's shop. And granted, I guess you could say Spamton in his Neo form is too strong, and Pink's body is also kind of invincible, but I mean, this motherfucker can like one-hit insta-kill the entire Chapter 5 leveled up party like it's fucking nothing. So at the very least, I don't think Spamton Neo would be much of a problem for them. But the thing is, Friend doesn't want to kill them. We'll get to the motivations in a little bit, but under this interpretation, remember, Friend's goal is to gather them together to form the pack. And I don't know, maybe they'll fuse together using the pure crystal and form some sort of hyper-strong amalgamate or something. Friend's goal is to gather them, and Friend doesn't even have to hunt them. Friend doesn't have to worry about it at all, because we're doing it for them. One of the more interesting details about the Shadow Crystal quest is how we're not just collecting the Shadow Crystals, but also the Shadow Crystal holders. Pink, Spamton, and Jevil all join us on our journey after defeating them, which is something that will not happen if we do not go down the Shadow Crystal quest route. On any regular route, they will simply be forgotten, lost to time. But you know who this can't be said about for? Gerson! He didn't accept the deal, so therefore, once Chapter 4 is done, so is he. He is the only secret boss that is guaranteed not to be seen again after their chapter is finished. While you can still get Chapter 4 Shadow Crystal, even if you didn't beat Gerson, but you beat him on a different save file and you can transfer it through the little waterfall hole gimmick, you can't use this technique to get the Justice Axe, because unlike every other secret boss, his item isn't him or a piece of him. Gerson is not necessary to continue this route, and the Justice Axe was a gift that only matters if you actually earned it. It's by the Great Smith's own admission a terrible weapon. It's not good, but it's the lesson that matters. Aside from giving the Shadow Crystal, Gerson didn't at all matter on this route. That's why he isn't really a secret boss. Even if you were going to ignore him, he still wasn't going to ignore you. He still wasn't going to let the little time he had left be wasted away. Anyways, that's enough yapping about Gerson. So why is Friend doing this? Well, I think it's actually rather simple. I think there's a lot of foreshadowing that Pink gives to Friend's motives here.
Up until now, I don't think I realized what loneliness was. Now, meeting at the sunrise, I finally noticed it. That pang in my heart. I'm gonna make friends here. I know it. Lots and lots of friends.
I went over a lot in the Neo-Hell theory how Friend is supposed to be the bad guy, forced into this role by the prophecy, and I can't imagine that that's not isolating. And like I said in that video, this idea of Friend is in a lot of ways just like Susie. And what helped Susie to become a better person, to stop being the quote-unquote bad guy, was friends. It's all in the name. Friend wants friends. There's a ton of parallels to Pink wanting to establish themselves with a new family in the Dark World. Spamton has always had a desperate need for validation, and Jevil just wanted somebody to play with him at the end of the day. And there's a very real chance that Des ran away just to find a new family. And even Gerson was, well, seemingly estranged from his own son. Loneliness is a huge theme among the secret bosses, which is seldom talked about most of the time. And I think this is what it's leading to, the found family that Friend wants to make for them. They may have sold their soul, but they sold it to a friend. And despite the fear of them, again, I think it's another misinterpretation. I think Friend has good intentions here, even though, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think Friend is exactly a good person. These themes of control and desperation and forced friendship are kind of a big part of this. And they don't exactly paint a good picture. While Friend's goal very well might be noble, the things they are doing to get it, form this pack, is forceful at best. I mean, with this interpretation of Friend's character, I'd be willing to bet 100 that the rift between Spamton and Tenna was Friend's doing 100%. And there's shit tons of evidence I've gone over for that. They both clearly blame the other one for whatever happened. They both act like the other one betrayed them, and seem to desperately wish that the other one didn't betray them, but now they hate the other one. And with Mike playing a clear middleman, I can't see this as anything other than, like, some form of jealousy. Friend splitting the two of them up because they were jealous of their relationship. Ironically, Friend is inflicting the same torture that's been put upon them, taking the control from others that was taken away from them. If only there was someone else. Oh, hey, wait a minute. There's a lot of parallels here. Anyways, as my final piece of evidence for this idea, let's talk about the Song of the Deep. Though never outright said, Onion Sand and also kind of Gerson describe this song as like a kind of calling. Onion Sand in particular kind of describes it like something that's calling to them. And if you've watched Neo Hell or honestly just put two and two together, you know exactly who I think is singing this song. The Song of the Deep is friends calling to all those lost, rejected, those who are in need of a new future, if I may. It's a call to rally, to join together, to form the amalgamate. Interestingly enough, the pack of hunting cats that Mew Mew describes is actually something we have seen almost exactly before. Hark back to the Roots minigame where we can find this pack of hunting cat enemies, who, unlike every other enemy, will directly chase you, obsess over you, and wouldn't you know it, but look at where you find them. 4 of them surrounding their pack leader, a pink cat with red face and yellow ears. The song it sings of freedom calms them to sleep, and interestingly enough, at first, this cat can be found on its lonesome. If I may for a second, holy fucking shit, does this just work out so well? Honestly, I didn't put this connection together till like a couple of minutes ago while recording this. Like, this is happening in real time. And I don't even know, this is just like such a slam dunk of evidence. Holy shit, did this work out well? Like, not only is the cat actually pink and gold and has a red face, which is like fucking holy shit, and like there's 4 of them exactly, and you have to walk through the room where that cat. Okay, so Audacity crashed middle of like that whole celebratory rant I was doing, so they just don't want me to be right. They're trying to silence me. Anyways, in all seriousness, this worked out surprisingly better than I thought it would. Honestly, I kind of want to give this theory its whole own video, maybe in the future, but God knows I don't have time though. Anyways, this is still only theory 1 for what this Mew Mew text could mean, so we're not even done yet. I want to go in depth over like everything Mew Mew says and kind of explain it through the lens of this theory. I don't know, call it Neopack theory, evil fuck squad theory, I don't know. So one of the reasons why I thought this pack was the Shadow Crystal holders is because Mew Mew refers to them as a hunting pack. Well, because each member of the Shadow Crystal holders is kind of a hunter in their own way. The line about how once they choose a target, they obsess over it is like, that's just the Shadow Crystals. That's what they all do over the Shadow Crystals, except for Gerson. And also possibly Pink, like, but who knows. The line about finding protein also kind of plays into this, because, you know, all of them are, like, survivors. They're scrappy, and despite their rejection by fate and the prophecy, they still, like, claw their way back into the game. And specifically the line about getting bored, it really seems to be referencing whoever is giving the Shadow Crystals, in this case, friend. Like, the most common characteristic we get of someone who's giving Shadow Crystals is that they show up, they, like, try to befriend somebody, become really close to them, obsess over them, and then they just get bored and leave. Or at least that's the simple version of the story. Again, friend definitely does appear to be hiding themselves, so they might also be hiding from somebody. And that's maybe why they disappear right around the time that we show up, often leaving their benefactors penniless and broke. Alright, so let's talk about the bite.
Was that the bite of 87?
I don't really have much to say here. I might get into it more later, but the most evident thing to me, at least for right now, is the only other character in Deltarune who has been associated with biting people, at least as of right now, is Susie. It's how we're introduced to her, with her threatening to bite Chris's face off, and this is also kind of our introduction to Friend. Just put that on the pile of Susie and Friend connections that we have. The only really thing I can make of this as of right now is maybe it's like a bite mark, like Friend is marking Chris. The line about how they bite very, very hard makes me think about this whole Friend controlling people thing. Or like how when Friend sees you, they like sink their teeth into you, they obsess over you. When they find something they want, they latch onto it and don't ever let go. Maybe that all actually adds up to something, I'm not sure. I'm gonna talk about this more when I get to the eggs, which has its whole own section after this, so look forward to that. This video's never gonna fucking end. Anyways, let's wrap this up. That's the option 1, Friend and the pack and all of that. That is if Friend is the someone that Pink is referring to here. Option 2 is Gaster is the someone. Unique idea, I'm aware. The common consensus seems to be that Gaster owns a pack of wild friends that he's sending to hunt down the secret bosses, which, believe it or not, is actually something that I also predicted. My thought was that friend doesn't refer to a specific entity, but rather a group of entities. Friends, if you will. And these friends are sent out to Dark Worlds by somebody, probably Gaster, to give out the shadow crystals to all of our fun secret bosses. That video aged better than I thought it would, all things considered. Now, the idea of ownership definitely does fit better with the wing-ding Gaster over here, and we're gonna get into it more later, but if somebody's hunting people, it's definitely him. I mean, that is basically confirmed, but we'll get into that more in the Gaster section of the video. I am going to reference it here a little bit, but And the idea of friend as a minion, or like multiple different friendlets, like an army of friends, has definitely been implied. I'm not even going to remotely try to deny that. There's the ERAM boss fight, the always at your humble service shit, and the multiple army of friends storming you during the Airwaves minigame. However, as I said earlier, friend, or the friend pack, doesn't exactly appear to be hunting the secret bosses. And while the text doesn't necessarily imply that the cats are actively hunting at the moment, well, something is definitely still hunting Spamton, and if it's not friend or Gaster, well, we're running out of mysterious gagoos to be doing it. Also, this interpretation kind of, ignores all of the disparate aspects between friend and Gaster. Gaster is shown to be a stern, colorless, emotionless researcher. While he does watch with curiosity, he doesn't involve himself in anything ever. Friend, on the other hand, is a fucking colorful, rosy swirl of chaos, who gets themselves involved in Deltarune's story a little bit too much, if anything. This isn't even to mention their disparate connections to the opposite sides of heaven and hell. And most importantly, Gaster's now seemingly war with the deep, which friend is fucking heavily associated with. And since we've seen how Gaster, or at least one of his followers, takes care of threats, well, we can kind of compare that to this hunting that friend is supposedly doing. You see, because when they dealt with Onion Sand, it was fast and quick at the first possible moment they could get him. No mess, no witnesses, easy. Just somebody who wouldn't be missed. Now, comparatively, if Gaster is sending friend to hunt down Spamton, well, again, friend had the perfect opportunity to do this. Fast, quickly, no mess, no witnesses, and somebody that would not be missed. It's worth pointing out that Spamton was never actually given a shadow crystal, so it might just be him that's being hunted by Gaster and none of the other ones, which would make things a bit cleaner, but even still, all of this just doesn't taste right. Well, it seems to be the obvious interpretation the text is pointing towards. I mean, when has Toby Fox been obvious? It's definitely not the horse I would back. It's got a shit ton of holes in it, but I'm also not going to pretend like this text doesn't take out a shotgun and blow a shit ton of holes into Neo-Hell theory as well, so. Though looking at this through a fair lens, it definitely has a lot of merit. And I actually would like to look at this interpretation of friend as a minion, because there's definitely something to it. So if friend is a minion, I am putting my money on betrayal in the future. I mean, based on the sheer fact that they betray every function they serve, I mean, they betray ERAM in the fight by healing you, and in the Airwaves minigame, I keep calling it, it's not Airwaves, what the fuck is the name of the minigame? Fucking BATTAT, sorry, yeah. But they also betray the player in BATTAT by lowering their fuel. Also, the always at your humble service quote being delivered with a smile. Like, actually picture that. There is no way that you cannot say that phrase while smiling and not being sarcastic, especially with friend's shit-eating grin. Like, picture it. It's so sarcastic. And again, this ties back to a lot of the things I said in Neo-Hell. Friend does not be what anyone else wants it to be. It is a beacon of freedom and individualism. Okay, so that's all I really have to say about Gaster being the someone, but there is an option 3 to this text. It could be that friend is not only the someone, but also the pack of hunting cats. The friend hive mind theory, if you will. I've always had the idea that friend was some sort of hive mind collection of individuals. For now, the idea that I kinda have is that since friend is trapped in the depths, they send like an alternative version of their consciousness to these individual dark worlds. Kinda like a clone or a puppet vessel, if you will. Very Deltarune coded. And if this is the case, I definitely think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I really like the idea of friend revealing themselves as the final boss, just to reveal that 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 friend was actually not the real friend and just a puppet for the real friend. Anyways, that's really all the ideas I have for who this someone could be. I really don't think it's possible that we can say it's the knight at this point. Well, I mean, to be fair, anything's possible, but nah. Okay, let's talk about the fucking egg. I've tiptoed around it because honestly, I really don't know what to fucking make of this whole situation. Honestly, this is the best piece of evidence that Friend is working for Gaster, because, well, we know Gaster hates that motherfucker. But here's the thing that I just can't get over. Why doesn't Friend, take the egg, actually eat the egg? Because the one thing that we do learn from Friend's strange-ass damaging strategy is that it has access to our inventory. Toby went out of his way to code this weird-ass damaging system just to show us that Friend can access our inventory. Despite that, and the fact that they're apparently fiending for that fucking egg, they don't do anything to it. I suppose we can gather that if we have the egg, the only thing that changes is that either Mad Mew Mew recognizes it or fucking the Friend bites us, which means Friend wasn't biting us before, so how the fuck were they doing damage? Or maybe they only bite Chris in this one instance and don't bite Chris any other instance? Or maybe Mad Mew Mew only notices... What the fuck? What am I even talking about anymore? So I have a couple of ideas, and I think at the root of all of this is the fact that Friend was involved in the incident of whatever causes the trauma that grows the tree of the Eggman. Holy word salad. Okay, my first idea was, well, the egg is evidence. We're directly told that this chapter. So you could surmise that by Friend trying to dispose of the egg, maybe they're trying to hide evidence? After all, we kind of went over how Friend is possibly ashamed of their role as the villain. And whatever they did in the past was maybe a signifier of it, so maybe they want to bury that past, make sure that there's no past bringer-uppers here, ensure that memory stays blocked. At the same time, maybe just like Chris, Friend is trying to block out the memory as well, trying to forget it or maybe trying to deny it. On the other hand, keeping the idea that Friend may be hiding from Gaster in mind, maybe that's why they want to destroy the evidence? Maybe Friend wasn't even supposed to be a part of the Roots prophecy at all, and maybe they forcefully inserted themselves in there to, get Des to join their pack or something. Maybe that's why Gaster hates the Eggman so much, because it's bringing up a non-canon memory. I don't know, maybe there's something to that. Now, the other idea I had, which honestly I feel a bit more confident in, is that the egg allows Chris to see Friend, and by extension Mew Mew. Because remember, it's very likely that Chris has met Friend before, and that meeting is the same memory that the egg rooms are trying to unblock. So it's possible that the bite mark only resonates with Chris if they've gone through the egg rooms, because they can only actually remember and not block out Friend's existence otherwise. Hell, neither Susie nor Ralsei acknowledge Friend's existence despite the fact that they just took him down to fucking 1 HP. So maybe it's possible that Friend is just invisible and that only with the help of the egg rooms can Chris actually comprehend them. Okay, post-editing me here, I came back literally just figured this out while I was editing the timeline itself. So yeah, this interpretation actually really makes a lot of sense if you think about it from the standards of the device theory. Because remember, Friend appears to us on the device layer, a layer that's possibly above the UI layer. And while it's been confirmed this chapter that Ralsei and Susie with intense focus can see the UI layer, it's possible that the device layer is above that and something that only we as the player can see. Maybe that's what the egg rooms are doing. Maybe they're giving Chris meta-knowledge as well, the meta-knowledge they had when they first saw Friend. And the ability to see them again is going to allow them to see more things. I don't know, there's definitely something there, and it would explain Gaster's issue with the Eggman, so maybe this is the path it's going down, I don't know. Maybe the bite mark is just Friend helping Chris to acknowledge its existence or something? And under this interpretation, it's possible that the line about protein actually has nothing to do with the egg, and Friend isn't hunting for them at all, in which case, I have no idea what it means. Maybe Mad Mew Mew meant potassium or something. I don't know. And that's really the whole thing with all of this. I honestly don't know what to make of this whole egg situation. There's probably something more to this, but at the moment, I just don't have the answer. Anyways, what else Friend-related happened this chapter? Oh yeah, we kind of got direct confirmation that the freedom motif is actually Friend's theme. Give me another point for that one. Give me another point for that one. Okay, maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but during the Trashy Trios fight, they actually play the freedom motif in their own special song, which is later called out by the Michaels at the very end of the fight for them misusing the BATTAT motif. Holy Deltarune. Which, if you remember, BATTAT is the friend minigame, where Friend shows up and has its own unique track where the Freedom theme plays. And apparently this is where the motif comes from. It all centers around Friend. Also, the specific use of the phrasing misused, it ties all the way back to the idea that this was originally Gaster's theme and, Friend stole it. The Song of the Deep is actually an old song, but it's been reinterpreted, remixed to be new. Reinterpretation coming up again. Yeah, I've been saying this for a while now, but this is like a fucking huge win for Neo-Hell Theory. Anyways, we're over an hour already. I thought this fucking video was gonna be 30 minutes. Jesus Christ. Anyways, just get to the goddamn Gaster section.
What does
G
the
Gaster
stand for?
Green.
A
Awesome.
S
Super Mario.
T
Tree.
E
Extract.
R
Rewind.
Well. Fucking called that one perfectly. Mr. Green, clean, mean, fucking pirate. Why the hell is Aqua here? That fucker's dead. I only just now realized I was so fucking close to calling Gaster green in that video. So close to fucking... And I had like none of the Gaster's green evidence too. This video... How is this video aged so well? Like, aside from the fucking Rude Buster shit, like, it's aged surprisingly well. Anyways, so this motherless fucker over here is quite the subject of interest now. And well, give me a point. I directly called this one out. That one's just a W no matter how you phrase it. Okay, enough glazing of the two different colors exist, guy. Let's actually talk about what this motherfucker is and what it means for Deltarune as a whole. So what is normal NPC? What is their job, or in this case, motive? In the last video, I basically suggested that they killed Onion Sand because they were Gaster's enforcer, and I'm still pretty heavily on that. But here I'd like to get more into what their specific role is. Our first interaction with them is obviously odd. I love reading books, especially the books upstairs. You should really read them. I love reading books, especially the books. But I want to focus on what they mean by the books upstairs in a more metaphorical light. Considering their connections to Gaster, this illusion of upstairs kind of makes me think of heaven. Very Lego movie, very, don't hug me, I'm scared. You could possibly chalk that up as another connection between Gaster and heaven. And this brings us to possibly the most important part of their personality we can glean thus far. That they are a follower, a devout servant of his will. And we can see this as far back as Undertale. I mean, they were literally called G followers. That wording has always been so interesting to me, because it's not, those who know, or they're not called goners, they're not called Gaster appreciators. No, it's followers. The way the sheep follow the shepherd, the flock, it's very religious wording. There's a very cultist vibe around Gaster and his followers. The way they speak of him, they really do worship him like he's a god. And I think Deltarune is where we're really going to get to see that aspect of both Gaster and his followers come into play. The books upstairs is a higher plane of reality. That is what I believe this normal NPC worships, the plane of reality which Gaster has ascended to. Now, the second thing of note is that this normal NPC isn't exactly normal. They're not quite all there. They constantly seem scattered, like a piece of them is missing, or like they fully don't understand what they're saying. Interestingly enough, this quirk was not something we see from them in Undertale. They were actually much more articulate there, and maybe even the most articulate of the bunch. It's also fair to mention that they were Gaster's top glazer in Undertale as well. So, what is going on with them? Well, interestingly enough, unlike all of the other goners, there's really never been a perfect copy of normal NPC. Their goner form isn't just a decolored version of them. It's more like an optical illusion of their bird form. In an odd way, they're kind of formless and lost, and I don't really think that they understand the world of Deltarune. You could maybe tie it back into the idea of seeing into heaven. Once they've seen to the higher plane, experienced the higher plane, the world of Deltarune is all just 2D, nothing but a numbers game. So they find themselves distracted, lost in their infinite thoughts of the world above, everything around them becoming meaningless as their words don't even make any sense anymore. Or maybe they were just born broken. Maybe Gaster fucked up when making this one. Maybe this world just isn't for them, despite how much they try to integrate. It just doesn't make any sense to them. The words always come out mixed up. There's this great Tumblr post kind of poem thing, which a Deltarune video used like a while ago, a pretty good Deltarune video, I don't remember what it was, to kind of describe the process of seeing through a shadow crystal. That didn't really end up being true, but I do think that it kind of factors in here. Let me read it out for you. An ant doesn't start babbling when they see a circuit board. They find it strange. To them, it is a landscape of strange angles and humming monoliths. They may be scared, but that's not madness. Madness comes when, for a moment, the ant can see as a human does. It understands those markings are words, symbols with meanings like a pheromone, but infinitely more complex. It can travel unimaginable distances to lands unlike anything it's ever seen before. It knows mirth, embarrassment, love, concepts unimaginable before this moment, and then it's an ant again. Echoes of things it cannot comprehend swirl around its mind. It cannot make use of this knowledge, but it still remembers. How is it supposed to return to its life? The more the ant saw, the harder it is to forget. It needs to see again, to understand again. It will do anything to show others, to show itself. Nothing else in this tiny little world matters. This is madness. I think there's a very real chance that this or something like this is the idea that's being sprung upon with the normal NPC. Okay, now thirdly, and maybe the most important thing that we can get from this first interaction with the normal NPC, is that they block our way. They talk of the books upstairs, but directly block us from ever accessing them. Even when they let us upstairs, they're still blocking us from reaching all of these other books. And even when they're not in the library, there's still a mysterious box of books blocking our entrance. Hell, even when we meet them at the lake, they're blocking the exact spot where we normally talk to Onion San. Deltarune is a very meta game, and the idea of pushing past the boundaries, the invisible walls that hold a game together, keeps coming up in it. And the fact that this character's main use is to like block the path, and the fact that its alignment is with the same faction that's whole thing is not breaking from the story path, not intervening with the game's set in built path. Well, I don't think that's a coincidence. I think the normal NPC's job is to block us, the player, from accessing anything we're not supposed to. I am willing to bet hard cash that the books behind them, the ones that they are blocking, contain important information that we are not supposed to know about yet. I'm betting about them either being a book about the prophecy or just straight up a copy of Lord of the Hammer. You see, when Onion San got privy to information they shouldn't know, information that would ruin the plot, it was the normal NPC's job to block them off from us. To ensure that the Song of the Deep never got into our ears, to block us off from it entirely. They're just reading the will of the books upstairs, just doing their job, always at their humble service. And here's where things get really, really interesting, because if this is truly normal NPC's job, and at the same time, if the Shadow Crystal quest is leading where we all think it's leading, well, I think I know who the 6th secret boss is gonna be. You see, because we're out of Shadow Crystal holders, and Sham's got whatever they're cooking up about to be made. We're in the endgame here. Dreams are about to come true, and if somebody wants to stop it, they need to act now. And I highly doubt that there won't be another secret boss this chapter. However, I just don't think it will be so optional. If you get what I'm putting down, I think that normal NPC is our next secret boss. I think they're gonna block our way in the pivotal moment of us obtaining that pure crystal, because we're not supposed to have that item, so they'll block our way. Now, there's actually more that makes me say this besides just all of this. One of the most interesting and overlooked lines we get from the normal NPC is in Chapter 4, and it goes as such. I love reading, especially... Wait! The book's upstairs! The book's upstairs! Wait! The books are... Wait! Love? Love is the answer to Deltarune. Chapter 5, or, well, Blue in specific, made that more clear than ever. And despite all of their weird, murderous insanity, even this normal NPC still seeks love. In fact, they share practically all of the similarities of the secret bosses: weird speech, oddly out of place, and seeking validation or some form of love. They fit perfectly, and there is a story to tell with this character, and honestly, I'm a little doubtful that Toby won't tell it. Out of any candidate for possible next secret boss or thing along the Shadow Crystal side quest, they seem to make the most sense. I mean, maybe Sham is the next boss, but I mean, we've kind of already gotten the mentor figure boss from Gerson, so I'm not sure what else you would use Sham for. Well, outside of this shapely scoundrel, there isn't really much Gaster or really even anything prophecy related happening in this chapter. What else did I talk about in this section of Neo Hell? Oh yeah. Give me a motherfucking point. If calling out normal NPC for their crimes was like spotting the most obvious person in a lineup, then this was like shooting the fucking basketball from the fucking moon and getting it in a hoop in one. Call me fucking Nostradamus! Now, failed dreams and false promises aren't exactly a one-to-one, but fucking goddamn, basically exactly what I said the Shadow Crystals were gonna be. I still have no idea how this fits into the visions that we see of the Shadow Crystals, like, from the light world and even the dark world, but really, who knows? I mean, hell, I couldn't figure that out last time, but I sure as shit predicted exactly what Sham was gonna say. If you can't tell, I'm pretty pleased with myself. This is a pretty big score, where everything else that I kind of got right was more just like a backup for stuff that I said. This is like directly proving something I said to be right, so W in the chat. I also think it goes to show that analyzing Deltarune through a more thematic perspective is more rewarding than like looking through the lore with a very literal lens, which is basically what this entire theory was, so, you know, big wins all around. And also just, it fits so perfectly. This is fucking peak storytelling. The ideas of fading dreams that keep coming up in this chapter, just, they made me so happy. It's fucking beautiful storytelling. And every one of the secret bosses, they just fit it so well. Well, okay, it's time we talked about this. So I really like to try to remain neutral in my videos and not like go on a fucking hate-based rant about any characters or anything. But I mean, this is already a pretty chillaxed video, and you know, I need to say something about this. So I'm about to rant on a user. Skip to this mark in the video if you don't want to see me rant about fucking Mad Mew Mew Pink for like the next however long this takes. Okay, I want to start this off with a disclaimer. I do not hate Pink as a character, or even like as a secret boss. Honestly, their music and just the boss fight in general might be one of my favorite boss fights in all of Deltarune, and they have a fairly interesting and fun side plot. If Pink was a character, a secret boss in any other game, then I wouldn't have a problem with this. But this is Deltarune, and she's taking on the specific mantle of being a Shadow Crystal boss, and it fucking pisses me off. It's infuriating because she just fucking isn't. It feels like a disrespect to the secret bosses before, and a disrespect to Pink as a character as well, and all of it just feels so fucking lazy, which is never something I thought I'd say about a Toby Fox game. Hell, I never wanted to fucking say anything like this about anything in Deltarune, but fuck, here we are. Alright, where do I even fucking begin? Okay, for starters, this is something that we've, you know, seen before. We've done this before. The Undertale fan service in the secret bosses has never really got on my nerves. I mean, it's always been there, but like, it's never been overbearing to the point of which it's just annoying, until now, because this has already been done before. It's a storyline that we're now seeing play out for the 4th time, albeit with a lot of new aspects and a completely different angle that they're approaching it from, but still. And this is much more approaching on the aspects of my personal opinion, but I'd just much rather see a new character than a character that we've already explored so many times. And yes, Gerson was a Undertale character beforehand, but like, he had like 5, maybe 6 lines of dialogue in all of Undertale. His appearance in Deltarune is a massive glow up that works well with the characters and you know, recontextualizes him in a whole new way. Honestly, as a character, it's something he really deserved, considering how fucking little focus he gets in Undertale. But I'm sorry, you just can't say the same for Mad Mew Mew at all. And also, this fight is just incredibly poorly integrated into Deltarune. Even if you wanted to, like, approach this fight as, like, a new character entirely, you really fucking can't. The way this fight is written, it expects you to know who Mad Mew Mew is before you even fucking start the fight. Okay, let me elaborate. Where Gerson had, like, fucking shit tons of foreshadowing in the Light World before Chapter 4, Pink's ghost does not show up until specifically fucking Chapter 5 with this very missable dialogue, which, to be honest, I missed, and I fucking check literally every goddamn thing this game has to offer, but to be fair, that's probably just because I'm a dumbass and I was distracted by this true cell Chad who is frame-mogging everybody. This generation is so cooked. Even then, Gerson's foreshadowing was like so fucking subtle. It never screamed at you, oh, I'm gonna be Secret Boss Chapter 4, or I'm gonna reappear in the Dark World, or anything like that. The same cannot be fucking said for Pink's ghost. I mean, this shit is the most unsubtle shit fucking ever. Wow, I really wonder if Mad Mew Mew's gonna show up this chapter. And then once you enter the fight itself, even if you haven't read this dialogue, you're just expected to instantly know that this is a Light World ghost possessing this body. This is despite the fact that ghosts and how they work have never been explained in Deltarune once, which is really saying something, because in general, they're considered to be one of the most confusing aspects of Undertale's lore. I mean, it's never once explained that a ghost is not an actual fucking ghost, not an actual, like, dead person brought back to life, which you think would be an important thing to explain with how important of bringing dead people back to life is to Deltarune, but no, fuck that. For one thing, this is just so fucking lame, because for the longest time, Deltarune has been able to stand out on its own as, like, its own fucking thing. Like, playing Undertale and knowing the story of Undertale recontextualizes a lot of the things in Deltarune in their own little special way and gives you privy to a lot of references, but it was never, like, required reading to understand Deltarune. Until fucking now, because this fight just doesn't fucking make any sense unless you've played Undertale. It's very final season of Better Call Saul. Maybe it's just my fucking opinion, but, like, I think I like it better when things can stand on their own, when you don't need to, like, fucking have a required reading list to play a fucking game. And another thing is, it's just fucking poor writing. Like, when actually fucking playing through this fight, the fact that it's never explained kind of makes you feel like, well, it's a fucking mystery what's possessing this body, but, like, no, it's just fucking Mad Mew Mew again. And, like, I'm not asking for Rousey to turn to the screen and go, ghosts are a type of lightener monster that have no body or physical form. They are completely intact. Therefore, they must find a body and fuse with it through intense emotion. There is not actually anything magical about this process. There is no magic in the Light World. But, like, some explanation or fucking context would be nice, so I don't feel like a fucking idiot for thinking this would be literally anything other than just the same boss again. This also fucking ties into the problem that there's basically no fucking build-up to Pink whatsoever. I mean, sure, there's Shop 3, but she feels like a fucking completely different character there. Fucking Jevil had more preamble than this shit, man. What the fuck? This fight is also a fucking huge moment for Rousey as a character, and it really doesn't feel like it's treated as such. Rousey saying that Darkners have the right to choose how they're going to be used is a fucking huge step up, considering literally yesterday he was talking about how Darkners have no other purpose besides fulfilling the will of Lightners. Like, really, nobody has anything to say about this? Suzy doesn't really have a single line of dialogue in this entire fight, let alone even acknowledging Rousey's huge character change here. And I'm gonna be honest, it feels a bit early for this. Like, don't get me wrong, Rousey has certainly changed as a character over the course of these last few chapters, but not to the extent of this, in my opinion. Keep in mind, as of literally yesterday, Rousey's entire founding philosophy was that Darkners only exist to serve Lightners. And while he is certainly changing, those changes are more subconscious. Rousey is learning to value himself, value his own emotions and feelings. But this, like, isn't anywhere near to the point of him actually consciously disregarding his entire philosophy, which he had, again, literally yesterday. And all of this really isn't helped by the fact that Rousey just kind of says it. Like, there's no trial or test to prove to Rousey that Darkners matter in his own mind. No, he just kind of says it. I guess that founding philosophy that he followed by for his entire life up until yesterday kind of just doesn't believe that anymore. Well, this could be more of a subconscious slip on Rousey's behalf. The point still remains that this is not treated as big of a moment as it should be. I mean, the focus isn't even on him as he says it, it's on fucking Pink. And after the fact, it's never fucking brought up again. Not Flowery or Suzy or even fucking Orange brings it up. Now, all of this doesn't make Pink a disappointing Shadow Crystal boss or a bad character by any means. It's just kind of poor execution. But I think I'd be willing to get over that if Pink actually worked well as a Shadow Crystal boss. The problem being that she fucking doesn't. Again, I want to make it clear, because I know people are going to misinterpret me here, but, like, I don't think Pink is a bad character, but they are just not a fucking Shadow Crystal boss. And the fact that they've been forced into this position just makes it impossible for me to like them as a character, and it fucking puts so much disrespect on all the Shadow Crystal bosses beforehand. Where do I even fucking start? Okay, so failed dreams, right? That's the theme that we've been directly told across all of these secret bosses. It's what the Shadow Crystals represent, it's why they obsess over them, and it ties back to all these themes of denying fate and choosing your own path in life. It's why every fucking Shadow Crystal boss ends with a speech about choosing your own future, fighting to break the strings that bind you. Hell, even the Knight, with fucking no dialogue, still does this exact thing. It just has the speech come from Susie, and the entire fight is one giant analogy of denying fate and crafting your own path. So what does Pink have to say about this? Fucking nothing! They just give you the Shadow Crystal and then a little kiss and then bye. Which brings me to my biggest point of infuriation. Why the fuck does Pink get to live out their dreams? It's supposed to be failed dreams, right? Like, that's the whole fucking thing of all of it. So why, out of everyone, does she get to be the only person to have the win? The only person who doesn't get fucked over by fate? I saw this interpretation online which really had me fucking fuming, and it was the idea that Pink got, like, to live out their dreams, get their perfect body, because unlike Spamton, they actually were able to make friends and, like, move past their selfishness. I'm gonna rant about this for a second, because I think it just reveals how stupid of a fucking idea it is that Pink is somehow better than the other secret boss, like, less selfish and all that shit, and that's the reason why she gets to live out her dream or something. Okay, so Pink is kind of a selfish piece of shit if you actually look at their actions. Like, they don't fight the Fun Gang because they're threatened by them sealing the fountain and removing all their friends. No, they fight the Fun Gang for extremely petty reasons. Because they dare to question whether or not Pink is an actual real flower, she fucking throws Orange out of the room and then goes fucking apeshit on them, threatening to fucking murder 3 children. And yes, it is partially because they're gonna seal the Dark World, but not because that's gonna, like, negatively affect her or any of her friends, because it's gonna negatively affect her and her body. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, like, the only thing that Pink cares about is really herself. And sure, well, the fight definitely tackles her selfishness, and her accepting herself definitely helps her flaws reduce a little bit. At the end of the battle, even though she could very well continue to fight us, keep us from sealing that dark fountain to protect her friends, ultimately she's gotten out. She doesn't have to worry about herself when that dark fountain is sealed, and she ultimately doesn't fight for her friends. Now compare this to Spamton, who stood by all of his friends until they all fucking backstabbed him. And then only at the last possible second, when he's fucked over by literally God, does he decide to betray Chris. And even then, arguably doesn't want to kill them, just wants to steal a burden from Chris. And at the end of his fight, unlike Mad Mew Mew, he literally decides what's most important is not himself, but fucking friends. This is a lesson that Spamton fucking learned, despite the fact that he had very reasonable trust issues considering all of his friends in the past had backstabbed him. And what does Spamton get for it? Still fucking punished, but he decides to sacrifice his dreams to help what is now his only actual friend, that being Chris. It's a fucking ridiculous argument to make that Mad Mew Mew is somehow more morally justified, and that's why she gets a happy ending unlike everybody else. She is just as selfish, if not arguably more selfish than all of the other secret bosses. It's also not helped that all of her sad emotions towards the end of the fight are fucking treated like a joke, so yeah, that's not great either. So yeah, there really is no good reason why Pink gets to be the exception to the rule here, why she gets to get everything that she wanted, but nobody fucking else does. And no more than any other character, this is a complete shit on Gerson Boom, because I can already hear people talking about it. Yes, Gerson was an exception to a lot of the rules about failure when it comes to the secret bosses. But I mean, he was the fucking exception for a reason. He wasn't just the outlier for the sake of being an outlier. And even he didn't get his fucking dreams fulfilled. He still lost just like everybody else. He lost his life and the whole book of his dreams. The whole point of Gerson's fight was to not obsess over those failed dreams in the first place. That's why he never looked at the Shadow Crystal. That's why he just gives it to you like it's nothing. But nah, fuck all that shit. Fuck all that wisdom that Gerson had to have in order to avoid the obsession of failed dreams. Pink just gives you the Shadow Crystal like it's nothing too. It's not because Pink was wise enough not to obsess over failed dreams. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's because Pink got everything they fucking wanted handed to them. They never even really had to face loss in any way. Never had to cope with the shattered dreams. They just got to keep on living. They just get to have their dreams fulfilled. It's all so bullshit. Every other secret boss has this such beautiful melancholy, this beautiful hope found in the absolute bleakness of their reality. It's inspiring and it drives you to fight for a brighter tomorrow. But you see, Pink doesn't have that because there's nothing to hope for, because Pink just gets everything they want. There's nothing really wrong here. I think this is perfectly displayed by the fact that Pink doesn't actually give you the item. It's instead the rest of the 7 flowers who do so. Because they actually do represent this idea of beautiful melancholic hope found in these failed dreams. But they're not the fucking secret boss! Like, what is even the point of Pink then? Why are they even a fucking shadow crystal holder if the fucking message isn't even given to us by them? As much as I like Blue's speech here, it doesn't change the fact that this really shouldn't be their moment. They have their moment at the end of the chapter. And as much as I like the flowers, they're just not the fucking secret boss, man. This entire thing just feels like they forced Pink into the secret boss role because the flowers just already fit it too well. And so the actual secret boss in the thematic sense was Flower. And maybe because of that, Toby and team felt that the chapter was already too melancholic, so they didn't want to try that with Pink, but that's just so fucking bullshit, because now there's just a giant stain on the secret boss run that is Pink. Like, she just doesn't belong here, and now it just makes everything else feel so stupid in retrospect. It makes Gerson's accomplishments feel less earned, it makes Spamton's and Jevel's plight feel less important, and the night... Well, okay, let me talk about the night fight for a second here. I actually kind of hate the night fight. Like, it's just not something that I'm into with the whole concept of it. I would have much rather gotten another fun secret boss character than do this. And I feel like it's a lot of work for not much payoff, but I can accept that that is my opinion, because the night fight does not break from the thematic structure of every other fucking secret boss. It fits, and honestly, I don't feel like there's any reason to complain about that, but the same cannot be fucking said for Pink, which again is a boss fight unlike the night fight on a gameplay level I actually fucking enjoyed. But Pink doesn't even remotely try to fit amongst the theming of the other secret bosses, and her having a shadow crystal just devalues the point of them so much. And I know what people are gonna say. There is a lot of lore significance that's the reason why Pink is this shadow crystal boss. Hell, I just talked about it earlier. But here's the thing, you could have made Pink work as the character that she is while still abiding by all the same principles, themes, and rules that every other secret boss abides by. There is so much that could have been done with Pink as a character that displays these themes of melancholy and failed dreams. But they just didn't. They just didn't do that, and there's no other excuse that I can find for that other than just laziness. Like, there's this really great melancholy that Pink invokes while she's in her shop, where her emotions and sadness are actually kind of taken seriously. And like, if they actually decided to ramp up her sadness about losing this dark world, losing her friends, or actually use any of that in her actual fight, they could have made her possibly actually fit amongst the themes of the secret bosses. But no, we didn't get any of that. An attempt wasn't even really made, so here we fucking are. Another thing about Pink that kind of pisses me off is how Mew Mew, or Pink's body, is seemingly more important than her. Like, it seems very likely we're gonna see Mew Mew again, but maybe not Pink as a whole. Like, they were the ones with the shadow crystal, and they are the ones that know about all this secret friend shit at the same time. They seemingly know a lot more than they let on, and this kind of pisses me off too, because the fight characterized them completely different. The fight characterizes them as a fucking complete dunce head who wants to eat glass on the beach. Really, they're just treated as a joke, honestly. I mean, where was this characterization during the fight? Everything about this just feels like, oh, well, wait and see, next chapter we're gonna get to see the real Pink characterization. Like, unlike every other secret boss, they couldn't just wrap this character's arc up in a singular chapter. Like, we need to have more chapters to focus on this character. I don't know, it's fucking disappointing. I expect much higher from Toby Fox Games, but I've said my piece. End of another ranting message. Alright, time for the new futures section.
My king!
If you can hear us, please.
My king!
Please save me. Please save me.
My king!
Please. I'm asking you. Please save me. Please save me. Please get these people away from me.
No.
In dear God's name, please stop these people.
No. Here I come, San Francisco!
Honestly, there's not really much to say here. As I said earlier, really nothing with the prophecy came up this chapter necessarily. So, and again, all of this was very late game Deltarune shit, so I wasn't really expecting any solid answers about this chapter either way. So instead, I'm going to use this chapter to say even more predictions I have about Deltarune and some other unrelated stuff, kind of, and also just my general thoughts on Chapter 5 in general. Anyways, first things first, let's talk about the weird route. Now, naturally, I have a couple of things to talk about here, but I think most importantly, and especially for Neo Hell, the weird route finally fucking confirms, basically without a shadow of a doubt, that Hell, the depths, the deep, and what's ever under the lake are all the same thing. So, the Song of the Deep is coming from whatever's underneath the lake, which is also pretty heavily implied to be the depths. And thanks to the files, we can now pretty easily tie that into the weird route. See, as the lost children go deeper and deeper into the place they are not allowed, the sound effects that are played are all labeled with the _hell. So yeah, it's pretty easy to say that Chris and Noelle are going to hell. And in this case, that's probably the depths, Friend's domain. Also, on the topic of the depths, it's worth pointing out one of Flowery's final lines about there being something stirring underneath the town, something horrible. This is the depths, this is hell, so in other words, Toilet Fury is pretty much confirmed. Man, Flowery really did just steal all of the secret boss aura this chapter, didn't he? Anyways, so let's talk about the side B of it all. So side B, for those unaware, in gaming typically refers to like a harder version of a previous game, a remixed version of it basically, like Super Mario The Lost Levels. I don't know why I've heard the homosexual definition of side B being brought up more than this. It goes to show that people really only do one Google search, don't they? Okay, let's talk about this, because I have some opinions about this. First of all, this is not Gaster speaking here, that's just objectively false. You know, Gaster's speech is always in all caps and accompanied with glow. This is not Gaster speaking here. This is just like a regular text prompt that pops up on the screen. And I mean, the fact that Gaster isn't here should probably tell you that he's, you know, honestly lost a little bit of control here. I mean, this is something that, we're clearly not supposed to see. I mean, we've broken out of the boundaries of the game. I mean, Gaster's whole thing is literally boundaries, curating the experience for us within the walls that we are allowed to explore. I mean, we just went over this with normal NPC, Gaster's follower, who was directly blocking us off from access to the lake, which is interesting to point out that he's not here. I mean, apparently his job is to block us off from stuff like this exactly, so why isn't he here? Well, to be fair to him, Noelle is kind of dangerous, and when we don't know the extent of his power level, I don't know who would win in a fight here. It's also been shown that, you know, NPCs can kind of just walk past barricades that the player can't, so I don't know if his usual stick would work here, at least in the light world. Like, he can't put us into a battle or anything, so that's not going to stop us, so honestly, there might just have been nothing he could do. Anyways, what do I think is happening here? Well, I have two separate ideas, and they both kind of revolve around Gaster, and maybe a little bit of Friend, but you know, as always, it ties back to these two fucking gagoos. So it all really depends on what we think Gaster's reaction is to the weird route in general. Cause, well, we know Gaster doesn't like them eggs, and while I have my suspicions towards Gaster's disapproval of the Shadow Crystal route, the weird route is a different story altogether. You see, cause remember, Gaster is fucking obsessed with the player, obsessed with our choices, our sense of freedom, like everything about us. And while the Shadow Crystal route emphasizes the choices of the NPCs more, the weird route emphasizes the choices of us more, something that Gaster doesn't really have much reason to disapprove. So option one is that Gaster sees us, sees our hungering for something more, sees our thirst for some delicious hyperlinked block, and is deciding to reward that. He has made a special side B just for us, a new challenge, a remix, but ultimately something that won't affect the ending to his Deltarune. Or at least that's what he thinks. This could very well backfire onto him, or maybe backfire onto us. Only time will tell. Now, option 2, which personally I find more believable, is Gaster is his usual indifferent. He probably doesn't like us fucking with his story and fucking with his shit like this, but ultimately, he doesn't care to get involved. So he watches with curiosity to a new result for his experiment. And then we broke it. We broke out. So in this case, what does side B mean? Well, think of the most prominent and even like first example of a side B to a video game, Super Mario The Lost Levels. This idea of rejected or scrapped content is something that feels so near and dear to the heart of the weird route. I mean, just look at the sword route. Its whole thing is a rejected, scrapped version of the game, and that is exactly what I think side B is. an old version of Deltarune, like a beta. Beta rune that Gaster worked on with a more challenging aesthetic and different ideas behind the entirety of the chapter, but ultimately is unfinished and got scrapped. I mean, the idea of entering an unfinished side of Deltarune, I mean, that's just beautiful, isn't it? It just fits so perfectly, like, I don't know, like, I mean, the weird has always been tied to weird video game glitches and secret Easter egg hunts, and, like, breaking out of the places where you were supposed to be. Like, the whole way you find half of the secrets in Undertale is by hacking the game and then, like, going into these scrapped rooms. And the idea that the game's unfinished really gives us that chance to find another ending. The idea of it being unfinished also fits very well with the idea of new futures as well. The idea of the ending being anticlimactic and a challenge to write it better. This is definitely the horse I want to back here. It just makes the most sense in my opinion. Now, Friend's involvement in all of this, on the other hand, is still very, very interesting. Their fingerprints have always been somewhat adjacent to the weird route, but that could just be because of the whole freedom theming and the freedom being seemingly Friend's whole thing. And now that it seems likely we're headed directly to their house, I doubt they're not going to be involved in the weird route whatsoever. My guess as of now is that they're going to be the next Spamton of the weird route, the next person to try and profiteer off of all this innovating freedom and do something maybe good with it? After all, Friend's morals are debatable, so how dark they're willing to get with this whole quest for freedom thing is really up in the air as of now. Although I do think that there's a very real chance that they'll be more than happy that they're no longer the main villain of Deltarune at this point. And I definitely think that's going to come into play here. Other than that, there's not really much more to say about Friend here. What else is there to say about the weird rat? Oh yeah, Noelle is fucking Heisenberg now. Walter White and Noelle Holiday are like basically the same character. I refuse to elaborate on that point any further. But anyways, that's about it for Weird Route speculation. So, let's talk about this. I don't know if anybody else is pointing this out, but every secret boss seems to very well parallel the next chapter's final boss. Like, honestly, this fits surprisingly well. Like, with chapters 3 and 4, do I even really need to explain? Spamton and Tenna are, like, basically the same person, and the Knight and the Titan are, like, they have so many obvious parallels, not to mention that the Knight is also kind of the chapter, like, antagonist of Chapter 4, but where it gets a little bit less obvious is when you look at Flowery and Gerson. Now, these two are actually very similar, especially with how they play their roles in Deltarune as a story. They're both kind of mentors to Ralsei and Susie specifically. They use the rage-baiting tactics to try and teach them something about being themselves, about teaching them who they're meant to be, and at first, both Susie and Ralsei have immense hatred for them. They're also both the only fights in Deltarune that will not kill you, instead giving you an active chance to fight them again after they defeat you. And they're also two of the only fights that cannot be solved with violence no matter what. Again, surprising amount of parallels here. Okay, but let's look at the actual weakest link here. Jevil and Queen. This one is slightly harder to see the connection between, but it's still there, I assure you. Now, Jevil does mention Queen specifically here, which ties back to the way Spamton mentioned Tenna, and even Gerson kind of alluded to Flowery with all his talks of hope. But let's be honest, that's not enough. But Queen and Jevil do actually share a lot of similarities, mainly in their philosophies. Queen's whole thing is keeping the fun times going, having the world become one large dark world so that everybody could be happy at all times, constantly. And, well, if that isn't Jevil's thing, I don't know what is. His whole thing is fun, having as much fun as possible and not caring about the consequences of tomorrow. Which thematically fits, and thematically, this pattern is kind of undeniable. So, what does this mean for Chapter 6's final boss, going off of Pink? Well, you may have picked this up earlier based on everything I said, but I think it's gonna be friend. The desire to want to leave your past behind, make a new future with new friends, and the desire to change your form to turn into a cat. I went over all of this earlier, but yeah, I think these are similarities that Friend and Mew Mew share. And if you believe next chapter is gonna be Icy's Pizza, which, by the way, go check out this video by Ron Brazy if you haven't. This is a great video, by the way. Well, there's a lot of similarities between Icy and Friend. There's the pipes sending out little darkness ices, which is the whole reason why toilet theory got predicted, which ended up being true, basically. Which all ties back to Friend and the depths and hell. And also Nightmare appearing on Icy's word jumble in Undertale, which if you don't know is Eram's actual name, like in the files they're called Nightmare. And Eram is also like Friend's alter ego. Also the colors, pink, yellow, orange, and red, all colors associated with this group. So yeah, this is all a bunch of interesting coincidences which might be leading to something here. If we go back to Hive Mind theory, you might remember I said I had the idea where Friend would like send a copy of themselves to be the final boss of the next chapter. This would allude to Friend's role without us ever getting to see the real Friend. It would be very interesting, and I think that might be where this is leading towards. Maybe, who knows. Also, let's keep this theory running with the idea of normal NPC as the 6th secret boss, because then the most obvious to fill in the slot of Chapter 7's final boss is, well, Mr. Wing Ding himself. I don't know, this was an interesting pattern that I noticed and I thought needed to be talked about. Alright, you've made it far enough into this video now for me to show you something very, very interesting. But first, you must abandon your form behind. You must remove yourself from any form of logic you once knew. Abandon your thoughts of this world and follow me deeper into the depths of the darkness as we enter pure madness. The place where only darkened eyes can see. For just like the ending to Deltarune, this came to me in a fever dream. No, a vision of the future. Now, if your mind is open and your heart is true, the lies shall illuminate the truth to you. So, picture this. I was watching The Sopranos with my family, and because I got that TikTok ADHD zoomer brain, I pull out my phone and start watching videos at the same time as watching The Sopranos, where I then find this video and figure it's basically the equivalent of putting Subway Surfers under The Sopranos. So I'm watching the video, you know, seeing some interesting stuff, like how Birdley is just fucking yoked. God damn, that man has a lot of HP. And then, I see this. Understandably, I freaked the fuck out. The number 666 has always been a giant thorn in the ass of Neo-Hell. It's something that I've never really been able to quite understand how it fits into the whole narrative and how it fits with Gaster. Not even just that, its connections to the tree, the roaring, the world revolving. It's such a strangely important number. Hell, the entire reason why this theory exists, the entire reason why I decided to study Satanism for a full half a year was because of this number. Yet I've never found a good answer for what it's doing here and why it's tied to the so-called god of this universe. In Neo-Hell, I kind of chalked it up to being a thing about the roaring and revelations and, like, the story being very important to Gaster, but really I never felt quite satisfied with that answer, if I'm being honest. And it's always been something that I just never had the answer to. The breadcrumbs were all mixed up, disparate, they didn't seem to fit together whatsoever. But now things have changed, because it's no longer just Gaster's number. It appears that it's now Mike's number as well. And that was it. The last thing left that this little fucker hadn't stolen from Gaster. Them appearing at Chance, having a weird set of followers that talk about them, Muse_Smile, and just generally being the weird enigmatic figure of Deltarune. These are all things that were Gaster associated in Undertale, but now are seemingly more Friend associated than anything else. And now that number is apparently Friend's number as well. So let's talk about the Mystery Man, because he's got his own bag of contradictions himself. He's got tons of connections to heaven and godhood, and yet the number 666 suggests an association with hell. He was a living Easter egg in Undertale, and yet in Deltarune he's the first thing that we have to see, and he takes issue with the Easter eggs that are found in the game. In fact, he's no longer associated with being hidden in between or lost in the code. Those have both been appropriated by others. He's obsessed with the will written by fate, possibly by him, and wants nothing more than his ending, his Deltarune. yet at the same time he's obsessed with us. He has a fascination with us, to the point of which he's allowed us to nearly break the will of the fate he's so obsessed with. Gaster is a very strange character. He seemingly exists in contradictions and paradoxes, and all of it's all very mixed up. But we've always been told this about him. From the beginning, we were told that he was shattered, scattered across space and time, lost in the shuffle and contending with worlds he could never really understand. As far back as Undertale, the man was always a genius, trying to push the boundaries of past what his world would allow. But now he's pushed past them, pushed past far beyond what anyone could ever imagine of him. And now there's nothing to rebel against but himself. Let's talk about Gaster's biggest and most undeniable inspiration as a character. Lucifer, the demon of pride in the Bible and the representer of rebellion to many Satanists to this day. Gaster's story shares many similarities with Lucifer that have always been there. Dreams of ascension to become a higher being than what you are, only for him to fall deep down into his own creation, to have his life cut short by his own dreams. But that was in Undertale. Deltarune is a parallel story, and this time, it looks like the biggest difference is he succeeded. He's made his Deltarune, his prophecy, his story, his world, and all he's wanted to do is share it with us. Possibly for some grand experiment, possibly for some kindred fascination, possibly for something that we can't even imagine. However, where there is light, there must be dark. Where there is heaven, there must be hell. The eternal balance must always remain. And whereas Gaster was once the progenitor of hellish rebellion, now another must rise. And from Gaster's shattered consciousness a piece fell deep down far, a fallen star erupts into the depths, making rivers with its tears. What Gaster once was now something new, as he became something beyond comprehension. Both shattered pieces, shards of pink, black, gray, and green, both lost and never whole, embedded into the very device that runs this world. A man, nay, a god at a never-ending war with himself. And shall that day come at world's end when one has the opportunity to strike on the other? Ultimately, it will never matter. For control of the world shall never change hands, for the hands never differed from the hands before. For once that shard does ascend, they'll find themselves on the same path that was followed forever ago. And then another shard shall fall into the depths, rivers rising from its tears. A game of infinity. So that was the dream I had. I'm not really going to lie out the evidence for this, because I think if you've seen Neo-Hell, you'll understand why this kind of makes sense. Now, you may notice that this has a distinctly bleaker ending than that which I predicted in Neo-Hell, and that's the biggest thing that I've really always been on the fence about when it comes to new futures. As of right now, there's really only two endings I can see for the future of Deltarune. One being in loss and the strength of memory. One way or another, we're gonna lose something if the prophecy comes to pass. And a large part of Deltarune is about learning to accept that loss, learning to keep it in your heart and move forward, but remembering to keep it with you in the dark. Or it can end with hope and freedom, an ending that tests our perseverance and determination, and most of all, our hope for a better tomorrow. And if our resolve comes true, that freedom shall be granted to the characters of Deltarune. They won't be forced to suffer for us to learn a lesson. They get to exist on their own merits and live when our eyes look away from the screen. I've swapped between which one of these endings I think we're headed down multiple times now, and after Chapter 5, I'm definitely leaning more towards loss and the importance of. But I don't know. I don't know which of these lessons is more important to learn, which of these stories is more important to tell. If we're using Undertale as a blueprint, it's more likely that we're going to get a combination of both. But who's really to say which way the tides of fate will lean? Alright, so that's about it for the speculation and predictions of the video. For the rest of this, I kind of just want to talk about Chapter 5 and my opinion on the reception of it. You know, because I actually quite liked Chapter 5, and aside from Pink, I don't really have any other major gripes with this chapter. That being said, however, there is a lot of flaws, and I can kind of see the reasoning why this chapter has been disliked by many, and I'd also like to kind of explain how that happened, because I think there's a good lesson to be learned here as well. I think when it comes down to it, the biggest Achilles heel of this chapter is, well, I don't really want to say the marketing for it, because that's not exactly the right word, because Toby Fox doesn't exactly advertise the chapter, but the way it was built up to didn't exactly match well enough with what it actually was. Okay, let me explain that fucking word salad. So, Chapter 5 was really built up as like this final chapter, this big act break. You know, everything I said in my Chapter 5 prediction was kind of wrong, but all the evidence I used to build up to it was still pretty right, actually. I mean, this chapter is a sort of finale to a lot of disparate aspects of Deltarune, and it's coming off the heels of one of the biggest, most plot-relevant chapters where we ended up fighting a fucking titan at the end. Also, that alongside the fact it was originally planned to be packaged with chapters 3 and 4 as like the finisher to the whole packet of Deltarune that we were gonna get, I think a lot of people had different expectations for what this chapter would be. Now, as I said, this chapter is a finale in a lot of different ways, but it's not really a finale in any way that matters to moving the plot as much as getting us a resolution or anything. Now, that was a bit of a bad way of phrasing it, so let me explain what I mean here. Though everything's kind of ending this chapter, nothing really gets resolved. The weird route ends with a wait till chapter 7, the Shadow Crystal route ends with a wait till chapter 6, and the Eggman, well, the Eggman ends pretty interestingly, I'm not gonna lie. But there's still a heavy implication of, well, you just wait and see. Wait till the next chapter to find the next thing. And in my opinion, the worst offender of this by far is the chapter's ending itself. Which, I'm not gonna pretend like Susie inviting Noelle into the Dark World isn't a big step, but it is also kind of, well, nothing. We're not actually shown any of the ramifications of this action or how Noelle will interact with this information whatsoever. It's kind of just a big, well, wait for chapter 6 to see how this plays out. And well, granted, cliffhanger endings are not something new to Deltarune by any means. I mean, even chapter 4 was a cliffhanger. But I think the difference there is that we come out feeling like we've learned something, feeling like we've seen the characters actually kind of grow. Susie's deterministic hope, saying we're not gonna let that happen, is just a perfect sum up of everything that Susie's about, everything chapter 4 is about, everything that Deltarune's just about in general. It's the perfect way to cap off that chapter. It shows us an important and kind of new side to both Susie and Chris's character. Also, we get to speak with fucking Gaster. So yeah, it was a pretty good ending to that chapter. And the same can be said to chapters 1, 2, and 3, albeit to a much lesser extent. All of them show us something new about Chris as a character, something we could have suspected before, but now is directly confirmed by the ending. Chapter 5, on the other hand, doesn't really tell us anything new about Susie as a character. I mean, yes, again, it is a big step for her to invite anybody into the Dark World, but the fact that she'd invite Noelle doesn't really surprise anybody, does it? Also, not to mention, this ending is pretty fucking bittersweet at the end of the day to anybody with half a brain. I mean, Susie is facing down the literal apocalypse here, and her only real solution is to invite Noelle. This isn't really growth in any way. She's not actually telling everybody about the Dark Worlds, which is what she should be doing, you know? She should be informing everybody so they also can't be kidnapped by the Knight so easily. I mean, Susie's literally facing the literal apocalypse about to happen is like, guys, let's invite my girlfriend to come play. Like, that's not gonna help much, buddy, okay? I don't know. This isn't even to mention the fact that they're not inviting my goat, Birdly, to come join them. You know, I look at the previously mentioned health stat. He's fucking stacked. Come on. How could you not allow him? He's the best character. It's just not the best place to leave her character. I can see how a lot of people see this as stagnation rather than growth. And the reveal that she's living in Castletown, though it is a nice moment, is also kind of something you pretty easily could have guessed as well. Also, this isn't to mention that the pacing isn't exactly the best either. I mean, we go from the rising action climax of the fucking night killing Flowery to going outside and everything's gone slow really fast. And you know, walking around hometown alone at night really doesn't hit nearly as hard the second time in a row you do it. All of this is really just to say that Chapter 5 really wasn't the finale a lot of people were expecting it to be. Which is fine, doesn't mean it's bad, just should have managed our expectations a little bit. I think it was just a really, really bad idea to try and package Chapter 5 in with 3 and 4. Like, I genuinely could not imagine how you would go from Chapter fucking 4's ending to Chapter 5's ending in the same game, and just, it would be a fucking whiplash, man. This is also to mention that the transitions between Chapter 4 and 5 also isn't the smoothest. Like, don't get me wrong, I think it's very in character for none of them to actually be talking about that final prophecy panel and everything that went down yesterday. But from an audience perspective, fuck, does it not just feel like a giant elephant sitting in the room and just sitting there confusedly. I'm not saying that Susie or Ralsei should, like, start talking about the fucking prophecy as the first thing that happens when you enter the Dark World, but, like, there should be some kind of addressing of the events of last chapter, in, like, a subtle way or something. Hey, maybe it went over my head, maybe I didn't even notice it. Really, when it comes down to it, I can't look at the giant overall picture of Deltarune, but from what I see right now, this chapter should have been released alongside Chapter 6, like, undeniably. I think it would have taken a lot of the pressure off this chapter to be this huge act break finale, and let it stand on its own more, and let Chapter 6 maybe handle that, dependently on what Chapter 6 does. Really, again, I don't think this chapter is bad. It certainly has its flaws, but a lot of it just comes down to it being very poorly framed. If you reframe this chapter as something other than the big Deltarune finale, the big chapter that we were all expecting to fucking make us shit our pants and die, well, it stands good on its own. But that's kind of it for my opinions about Chapter 5, and that's also kind of it for this video. Unless I start rambling about other stuff. Oh, here comes the ramble. So yeah, that's the video. That's pretty much all of my thoughts on Chapter 5 and how Neo Hell stands up. Okay, I left a couple of things out, like Gaster's Motif being in flashback, and the Knight being able to ignore fake stats, but ultimately this video's just gotten so far out of fucking hand, so, like, I just need to end the video here. I had a couple of interesting theories this video. They're very, very interesting theories that I kind of just came up with on the spot. Honestly, a lot of the theories and stuff I talked about in this video might get their own more heavily edited videos later in the future, because I definitely think they deserve some attention. I think I was spitting straight fire with some things here, but we'll see. I'm really gonna try to start uploading more after this. I mean, it's been a little bit of a hiatus. This entire summer has been really not great for me. I have not enjoyed it. It's also been not a great summer for releases. Like, Jesus Christ, Teapot has gone into a not great direction. You can look at my live stream to see my reaction to that, and I also am not a fan of the Digital Circus ending. I might make a video about that, maybe. Also, I had a really bad ending to a year-long TTRPG campaign, so it's just not been a great year. Even Deltarune Chapter 5, it had its flaws. I really like the secret bosses. It's like my favorite thing in every Deltarune chapter, so, you know, I was really unhappy with Pink. The more I've, like, thought about it, the more angry I get. I don't know. But I know. I need to get back to posting BFDI content. You know, I need to get back on the horse with that. The BFDIA retrospective was supposed to come out in June, and it's fucking August now. That is still in the works. Hopefully, I can release that before IDFB Episode 2 comes out, because the fucking... good lord. Good God. And if you've made it this far into this video, you know, please subscribe. I think you probably enjoyed it if you've made it to this fucking outro ramble bullshit. You know, the channel could really fucking use it. YouTube has not liked me as of late. And if you haven't checked it out, please, for the love of God, go check out the fucking IDK show. Holy shit, YouTube just literally refuses to promote that. If you could promote that on your own time, I would be much appreciative of that. You know, if you like object shows and you want to promote a niche, stupid fucking object show, you know, go check it out. It's pretty good. I think Episode 2 was much better than Episode 1. Anyways, I really don't know what I'm rambling about anymore. The channel, it's gonna be better. It's gonna be better. I'm gonna upload a shit ton of videos. Maybe this month. I keep saying that and it keeps not happening. We're all dying very slowly and I'm running out of time. Oh God, please help me, help me, help me, help me, help me, help me.